Hello, everyone. I'm Ron Amlin from SBM St. Louis, and I am honored today to have with us Judy Ryan. She's the CEO of LifeWork Systems, and she's an award-winning performance management company specializing in culture transformation. And I like to think of Judy like E.F. Hutton. You know, when she speaks, people listen. I might be dating myself with that, Judy, but thank you for joining us. Tell us a little about your background, about the business, and how you're helping companies out there.
Okay, well, thank you for having me on here, Ron. It's been great to know you and to be part of your St. Louis Small Business Monthly. I've been the CEO of LifeWork Systems since 2002, and so we're going to start our 19th year in October. And I just realized that I've been writing the column, The Extraordinary Workplace, for 9 years now. And I just looked and I have 78 articles with you. So that's pretty fun to see that happen. But the way that we really help businesses is we help them to move through workplace transformation. And probably what's most important about that is that they even know what they need to transform from into. Fortunately for us, a lot of today's trends like agile, whether it's scaled agile or enterprise agile, or diversity and inclusion, or globalization, or digital transformation, all of these trends are now requiring a certain level of emotional intelligence, confidence, ability to create solutions on the fly and work effectively, both leading and following. So that's really where we can really help people. And not only does it help them with the productivity and performance, it helps them to be happier, healthier people that are resilient even through things like this pandemic.
Yeah. Oh, and we're going to get into a few specifics about management theories and how to manage and really cultivate your workforce. But let's start out with some basics. I mean, everybody wants a better culture right now. Every business owner out there wants a better culture. What are some of the keys for building that better culture?
Well, part of it is that people have some information about what kind of culture, if they've been reading up and really following the most progressive, successful businesses. But where they really get stalled is they don't exactly know, how does this differ from what we were doing? How do we implement? That's probably the biggest thing. How do we have a structured way of transforming something that really needs to move from a pretty conventional model to an unconventional model? And so, like, just to answer that on one level, there are basic things we do in every business until we realize how bad they are to be doing. And we call that spitting in the soup. Like, we want to take something that people think is wholesome and spit the heck into that soup so that they don't even want it anymore. And the way that I like to kind of simplify it is, if you think of a garden, if you don't put the right things into the land and you don't use the right fertilizer and the right water and all the right spacing and all of that, you can really have a disaster. So when I've seen our system change the direction of companies and other kinds of organizations from like a negative atmosphere where they've spent all this money and time training people only to have them leave or to want to leave. And what's really bad is that in those situations, most people don't want to take responsibility. And I would say not only do they not, maybe they want to take responsibility sometimes, but they're not really sure how to do that. And they also aren't conditioned to consider what they're causing other people. You can see it right now in the world. I mean, I don't want to get political about it, but people don't always think about what consequences am I causing another person? And that's the differentiator that I would say Simon Sinek stands for, and some of the larger thought leaders, or how do we become really conditioned to live by purpose and values?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. A business owner told me a couple of weeks ago that he felt, he has 80 employees. He felt he has more of an impact on the success of his employees' marriages than anybody else, other than those two individuals. And I kind of looked at him in a puzzling way, and he said, think about it. If I send them home from work every day and they're disillusioned, they're upset, they're in a really bad place, they may take that out on their spouse, and that's going to affect their relationship at home and their kids, their relationship with their kids. And so he said, I have this duty to send my employees home with the best mindset possible. And I think that
I would agree. Good, really healthy human systems impact all of our relationships. And I would even say if an owner like that with that sort of vision could go a step further, why not teach skills that they can then go home and use with their kids and their relatives, and when they have challenges or just growth needed.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about some interesting aspects of managing a culture. And the first thing I wanted to talk to you about, because you wrote about this a few months ago in our magazine, about annual performance reviews. I've never done them, but I'm in a business owners group, and they all do them. In fact, they're very, those performance reviews are really important to them. And you're not a big believer in annual performance reviews. So explain to me, and maybe I don't want to put words in your mouth, but tell me about your philosophy on
Yeah,
these.
I can't say that I would, say, oh, don't do performance reviews. But what I will say is that if you use a specific set of conditions with your people, you won't need to. Most people actually dread the performance review because it tends to be very, months and months and months before you hear about something. It's often biased, it's often negative, and it's a lot of work for the people giving the appraisals. What most people were saying in the article, so the article I wrote was about an article from the Harvard Business Review, and it was saying that about 30% of companies now are doing away with appraisals, and they're trying to implement some sort of way to spend more regular time with their employees and also focus on developing them. Now, I would say that's a key cornerstone of what we do, because once an organization understands all of the rails, all the guidelines for a healthy workplace culture, then the biggest, most important thing is to have an ongoing mentoring dynamic in your organization. And that's for everyone. And it's a very specific type of mentoring that's not counseling or therapy, or even like, oh, I have to be mentored by you, but you couldn't be mentored by me. It's not like that. So when you do that and you're asking very Socratic and very specific type of questions about engagement and performance and relationships, if you were to come and do an appraisal, which people will often tell us, well, we did our appraisal, but it was nothing really new to talk about, because we've been supporting everything all the way through. It was just a matter of kind of celebrating. And that's what you want and need. You don't want to be like Big Brother looking over employees and then writing down and being ready to, and that's where it's moving.
Yeah, and you have to have that constant communication, and then you're kind of having a lot of smaller performance reviews all the time, I guess. If
in a way you are. They're not even they don't even have a feeling of I'm judging your performance. It's more like I'm here to help, and I want to make sure you know what you need and how you're going to solve something. And it's really encouraging as opposed to scary.
Right.
So,
well,
I will say this, Ron, one thing that's different about our model, and I think it's an important thing for all business people to consider going forward, is don't just develop your leaders and your titled managers, develop from CEO to frontline staff. That means they get mentored, that means they get trained. A lot of people today think, well, how can I afford that? Or how can I afford the time? Well, you can't if you're thinking that the management has to do all the work. It's a very distributive process where the employees hire and onboard and help with, interviewing and all kinds of things. So I think that's the biggest surprise to people when they first start working with us. What do you mean we have to do like a vertical slice? Well, it's not going to mean so much if you already set up your project with artificial separation.
Yeah. Well, another thing I want to talk to you about are some leadership tactics that business owners are using. And you wrote about this again a month or so ago, and I'm reading that list when you wrote it, and I think I've probably been guilty of trying every one of those to probably not much success. But let's go through them and talk about what they are and why they may or may not work. Let's talk about autocratic. Tell me what that means.
First of all, we're now dipping into the soup that I'm spitting in. Okay. And it's really funny because even one of my own people said, you need to go and fix the police and, all these things they're doing. And I go, that's not the way we work. What we do is look at what system, if it were changed, would fix this. Well, the biggest system that we have a problem with that is right under everybody's nose that they haven't looked at seriously in many organizations are the control models. The autocratic is the most obvious. It's do it or else. Do it or else you get written up. Do it because I said so. I mean, it's that sort of dynamic. You're holding a belief about people that's very negative and limited. I can't trust you. I have to police you. I have to manage you. The other control models are a little more subtle. One of them is dangling carrots and sort of bribing people. And that's thought to be a really good alternative, and it's actually not.
Well, and tell me why you think that doesn't work, because there are entire business systems wrapped around this. If we all do this, we'll get a T-shirt. If we, that type of thing. So tell me why you're not a fan of that.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, when the whole promotion of rewarding came out, it was based on the work of Skinner, who was a scientist that only did rewarding with animals. So of course it worked. And I really want to say this, if you look at punishment and reward, they quote unquote work. Just like if I put a gun to your head, or if I gave you some money for something that didn't feel too unethical. But both of those and the other two I'm going to tell you about have really counterproductive effects. And most people don't know it about rewarding. What's been found in the literature and the research is that the more that you reward people, the less they stay motivated to the very things you want from them. So it's kind of like if you imagine somebody saying, I'll give you a bonus if you do this or that. In our minds, what they found is that there's this part of us going, this must really suck if they have to give us this carrot, right? Or that feeling of manipulation. And on top of it, it creates a scarcity mind amongst the employees. It often pits them against each other, and they'll rush past quality to get the prize. And so it becomes more about competition than it does about collaboration and quality. And that's a lot of the kinds of things, when people hear this the first time, sometimes they're like, you know what, I've kind of noticed our people are sort of mercenary, and I thought it was all about them, but from what you're telling me, I'm creating mercenaries. And I go, yeah, you are. So those two, again, you're holding a negative belief. You're holding a belief that people are selfish and lazy unless I'm dangling something in front of them. And they actually become less and less motivated. The third and fourth ones are really subtle and easy to fall into. And it's one is judging people either favorably or unfavorably, which is very different than encouragement or even instruction. And so it would be like if I said to you, Ron, I'm so proud of you. Go out and make a sale and make me proud. Or if I said, Ron, I'm so disappointed in you. What that is about saying, I'm the judge that knows best, you're the underling. And so people either become people pleasers and they become worried about like pushing back because the whole emphasis is please me, the authority figure. Or there's other people that will be in their head, who died and made you, God? Screw you, right? So that's the kind of thing that occurs, but we're pulled into it because a lot of times we're not feeling so confident, so it makes us feel puffed up to bestow judgment. Mm-hmm. So that belief is negative again, undeserving. And then the fourth one really surprises people, and that's pampering and spoiling. And I don't mean giving people ping pong tables or, more flex time or anything. I'm talking about when we think it's our job to tell people something over and over again, give them, overcompensate for them, give them exemptions a lot of the time. Like you can see really extreme examples of this in like where the parents gave the kids, cheated for them so that they could get into Ivy League. So the belief is you can't do it without me. You need me to overcompensate for you. So again, that's a negative belief. And what happens is you think you might be furthering somebody into being a better person when you're actually creating entitlement, underperformance, things like that. It's amazing how many people do that, pampering and spoiling. And what happens is the other side of that is people start learning inadequacy and believing it. And then that becomes a vicious cycle. So those are happening in homes, in schools, and in workplaces, and it's right there in front of us, and we don't see that.
Yeah, and that's exactly the point I was going to make. If you're a business owner, if you're a manager, if you are a mother, a father, I mean, we're making, we're using these tactics all the time
Yeah.
So how do we get away from that and still get the results at the end of the day?
Well, that's it. I mean, when people start to really hear what I'm saying on this, the first reaction is, are you telling me to just be permissive and everything goes? No. What you want to do instead is you want to create a responsibility-based mindset, because all of the control models and practices, all the control models are extrinsic, let me puppet string you. So how do you switch that to being something where you hold a positive belief about people and you set it up that you stop managing, motivating, judging, and spoiling them, and instead create a culture where they're consistently being coached and mentored in all kinds of things. And then from that, they become self-directed, self-managing, contributing, and they're feeling better about themselves and one another. So it's actually harder to do a responsibility-based culture because it requires a very positive, powerful ego, a person that cares more about developing you than controlling you, which is a more, it's a richer and more mature set of skills. And it's what's beautiful is that if you do it right, you're teaching your employees to help each other with it like you're helping them. And everybody's, and they can even be helping you sometimes, you know? So,
So if I want to have that in my company, I mean, what are some of the first steps? What are some of the keys that I'm going to look at to build kind of that responsibility-based approach?
well, the very first thing we do is help people connect the dots between why do you want to get rid of these control models. The main reason is that, and this is why I love the psychology under our model, which is based on Alfred Adler's work. He's very much like Brene Brown. He was all about inferiority complex. She called it shame. If we don't deal with that, we're setting ourselves up to have uninterrupted struggles and ways that we disengage, and those struggles are both internal and external. So if people don't make the connection between, wow, what conditions are causing inferiority complex? Because if I have that going on, we're going to be doing more and more control, and it's going to keep reinforcing we need more control. And we're not aware that there's a whole different way to do it where you start getting really productive, expanded potential from people. So the most important thing is that we so sufficiently spit in that soup that people start going, okay, I'm not just doing this because it makes Ron feel good. I'm doing this because Ron then remembers he's an awesome human being that's competent and he's lovable and he's deserving of being connected with and he's powerful, and we're going to help support him in making his contributions. That's a totally different mindset, practices, conversations, everything. So that is our first step, is just educating, let go of this and start building this. And then it just comes down to lots and lots of experiences with changing behavior and applying that and then integrating that all the way through the organization. So we want to be known for sustainable change. You might go to a workshop and hear something once and you think it sounds great, but then it goes up on a shelf and it's gone. Ours is repetitive, different ways that people get experience with the content and the tools, and then it becomes integrated into the actual operations of the company. So you kind of have to know that there is an implementation process. It includes training, but it also includes assessments and mentoring and skills work and demonstrations, just all kinds of things. And once you understand it, you can see, well, I know now why that would work. But if you've never seen that kind of system, you might not realize that.
And you know, it seems like business owners are coming around, and I've been involved with business owners for 25 years. It seems like more of them are coming around to the fact that culture is so important to their business and their employees.
I think you're right.
I think 25 years ago, it was kind of that philosophy of, you know, go over there, sit in that chair, and, you know, if you do well, keep your mouth shut. If you do well 4 years from now, maybe you'll get a promotion and a raise. But other than that, I don't want to hear from you.
Well, I think the consciousness around how people are actually motivated, whether from within or without, is changing everywhere. That's why schools aren't effective using the old command and control, and families aren't. And they think if I don't, I'm just going to have this alternative being permissive. So that's why I love it when people get this, because they see the results and they're like, oh my gosh, I thought I had to be this, you know, this hard person, and I didn't, to get the best out of my people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Judy Ryan, thank you very much for giving us all something to think about when it comes to our culture. If we want to get in contact with you, what's the best way to reach you?
I would just say go to our website, lifeworksystems.com, and my phone number's on there, our email address is on there. There's tons of videos. And the one thing I want you to look at is the articles, because we actually have over 200 because I write a separate column. But there's also industry articles that I think business owners would appreciate. They're articles that are not written by me. They're articles written by Forbes and Inc. and Google and Deloitte. And what we've tried to do in these articles is connect the dots between here's a trend being discussed in depth, and here's the kind of culture you need to be successful in that trend. So we have about 15 to 20 articles right there that are not us. They're just, other
Right,
experts.
right. Well, fantastic. Thank you very much for joining us, and best of luck to you.
Thanks, Ron.